I'm Julie Grace Brefke coming to you here live from the office of House Majority Whip Steve Scalise. Thank you for joining us, Congressman.
Great to be with you, Julie.
You guys just dropped the tax reform bill. You had the House Republicans have a very ambitious agenda. It took 13 months for Reagan tax reform to get through Congress. You guys want to pass, at least through the lower chamber, in less than 13 days. What's the plan? How are you guys going to accomplish that?
Well, we're going bold and going big, and this is something we've been working on for a long time. This didn't just happen overnight. For years, Republicans have been talking about reforming the tax code, simplifying it, and cutting taxes for families, and having hearings and finally producing a bill. Today we filed the formal bill, but we've also been working closely with President Trump. He's all in on this. He wants to cut taxes for middle-class families, to rebuild the middle class and help lower-income people become part of the American dream. And another key part of this bill, we make America competitive again. You know, I've been tired of seeing all these jobs leave America, going to foreign countries, and in companies moving overseas because we have the highest corporate tax rate in the industrialized world. We change that in this bill. We actually make America the leader of the world again and bring those jobs back. So it's exciting that we're finally able to come together behind a bill that is a really big win for American families, and especially people who want to become part of the American dream.
Now, there were some road bumps along the way with health care. I've heard some concerns from members that they're worried that the same thing will kind of repeat itself all over again. How do you prevent that, and what's your level of concern that this won't make it through the Senate?
Well, in the end, we in the House did pass a health care bill. It was very complicated. One of the things that we didn't want to repeat again was that when we filed the health care bill and rolled it out, the president wasn't on board yet. He was still looking at some of the things that were in the bill, wanted to make sure that he could support it, but on day one, he wasn't there with us. We wanted President Trump to be with us on day one. And so we worked closely with him and his team to make sure that not only did it achieve the things we want, which is to lower taxes for all families, rebuild the middle class, make our country competitive again, but President Trump wanted to do the same things. And so we worked through the details to make sure that, now today we're not only rolling the bill out in the House, but we're going to the White House and rolling this bill out with President Trump side by side. So that was, if you want to talk about things that we're doing differently, even better. And it's going to help us move this bill faster because we're speaking with a unified voice, and we can get our message out to the American people, and they're going to see when they look at this. This is going to be better for them. The average American family will have more than $1,000 in their paychecks and in their pockets that they don't have today because this bill cuts taxes across the board.
Now, I've talked to a lot of different members from the New Jersey and New York delegations, and one of their main concerns was the state and local tax, the potential elimination of that. I guess some would say they're a little salty about salt. How do you address that to make sure that the middle class is taken care of in high tax states?
We've been working closely with those members. I've convened some meetings with Chairman Brady, with a lot of those members individually. And what we've been able to show them is that this tax cut plan actually works out better for their constituents, where you're going to see people with more money in their pockets because of this bill, even changing. And look, we're changing a lot of things. We're changing the status quo. There are a lot of deductions and credits that go away. But what that means is that we can lower rates for everybody. So instead of having a few special interest loopholes that just a few people work to take advantage of, we're actually getting rid of those and lowering tax rates for everybody. So even families that might be taking a certain deduction or credit today are going to look at the code and say, wait, we double the personal exemption from $12,000 to $24,000. The first $24,000 of your income will not be taxed. Most families are going to say, I don't have to itemize anymore. I can actually just literally fill out their taxes on a postcard. Under our plan, more than 90% of American families will be able to do their taxes on a postcard because we simplify the code so much.
Now, Chairman Brady, when reporters were speaking with him yesterday, he was saying that it could take multiple steps to get the 20% corporate tax rate to be permanent. How confident are you that Republicans are actually going to be able to make that permanent long term?
Well, we proved how you can do it. In our bill, both the personal income taxes and the corporate tax rates are made permanent. And that way you get certainty in the code. You send a message to all of those companies that moved overseas and all the jobs that moved overseas that you can now come back to America. And look, I've talked to some of the CEOs of these companies. They want to move those jobs back to America. They just couldn't when we had the highest tax rate in the industrialized world. So by having permanence in the code, it really does give certainty. So in the House, we've been able to put it together that way. We'll see what happens in the Senate. I can't speak for the Senate, but I know this. When you look at what our senators want to do, they want to do the same things that President Trump wants to do in terms of lowering rates. And I think you're going to see us get a bill to President Trump's desk that he signs, and you will see this economy take off like nothing we've seen in decades.
Now, on a different topic, one that directly impacts your state, I've heard there's been some tensions in the conference, maybe a slight disagreement with Chairman Hensarling over how to handle the National Flood Insurance Program. So I was wondering if you had any updates on how that's going to be kind of revamped or how Congress is taking action.
I've actually been working very closely with Chairman Hensarling to try to come to an agreement on there's about a small section of his bill that a lot of members had some issues with, and we're working on that. But overall, Chairman Hensarling has a really good bill that reforms the National Flood Insurance Program. It keeps it going. It's a bill that, with these changes that we're working on, will actually be a win for taxpayers and for policyholders because there are Americans all across this country that have flood insurance. You would not think a city like Houston would see the devastation they had where so much of the city of Houston and surrounding areas of Texas flooded like they did. That's why you have a program like the National Flood Insurance Program. We want to make it more solvent, and that's what this bill does. It's got a lot of really good reforms, but we also want a bill that passes. And so that's what I've been working with Chairman Hensarling to do, and I think you're going to see us come out with a bill that makes major reforms, that keeps the program going, and is sustainable for both taxpayers and ratepayers.
Now, earlier this week, we unfortunately had the terrorist attack in New York City. President Trump has called for the elimination of the Visa Diversity Lottery program. I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
President Trump's right. I have been a longtime opponent of this Visa Lottery program because, look, number one, we let in about 1 million people a year into America, the most generous immigration plans in the world. No other country lets in that many people to our country legally. And obviously there are a lot of other people waiting to get here, and there are people that came here illegally. But look at what we're doing in higher education. We are training some of the brightest people in the world, the best computer scientists, the best engineers, and when they get their degree and graduate because they had a student visa, they're forced to leave the country and go compete against us. It makes absolutely no sense. So why have this lottery program where you literally just let people in that you don't even know what their backgrounds are? You can't do the vetting. Instead of that, why don't you shift it over and have a merit-based program to modernize our legal immigration system and make it work better? So let's end this program. This is a clear example of why it's a failure. President Trump's right, and I support him and want to help get this fixed.
Now, you've been back for about a little over a month now, back to work, and you were greeted with a warm bipartisan welcome. I was wondering, has that changed at all since? And I mean, I guess I feel like we often see after tragedies, kind of Republicans and Democrats coming together. How do you keep that camaraderie going to be able to work together on issues?
It was just a special moment when I was able to finally come back to the House chamber after being in the hospital for 3.5 months. I really missed being back home. I missed my job and wanted to come back and was able to come back. And it was just a special day to see both Republicans and Democrats come together. And look, this is just the way you treat people. I've always said, we're going to battle over the differences we have. That's what makes our country great, is that, we were able to express our views and fight for our views here in the people's house. But when you're making those battles and fighting those battles, don't make them personal. And I think that's where you see the breakdown in civility, is when people try to attack somebody personally. Stick with the issues. If I'm fighting you today over tax cuts, maybe we're going to be working tomorrow on something like flood insurance reform. But let's try to figure out a way to fight our battles where they deserve to be fought, but don't make it personal.
So now that you've been back for a little bit, are you finally feeling back in the swing of things? Has it really impacted? The shooting impacted you as a legislator on how you view certain topics?
After the shooting, it was a horrible event, but at the same time, I saw so much love and support and people praying for me all around the country, people I never even knew. And that really touched me in a personal way, that you see the greatness of this country. You see the greatness of people that just care. They might say they don't like this or that about Congress, but then a member of Congress was shot and people said, that's attack on the institution, and we love this country. And they came together, and I benefited from it. I benefited from a lot of miracles that God delivered. So I'm lucky to be alive. I'm lucky to be here. I love being able to represent Southeast Louisiana and be the majority whip, fighting for the things that I believe in, that our conference believes in, to get the country back on track. So, once you're here, it's a fast-moving pace, and I was ready. I rehabbed for a long time to get the strength back, to be able to walk again, even though I have crutches. I'm working to improve that every day, but it's exciting to be here. It's a fun time to be back. It's an important time for the country, so I'm actually invigorated by being back.
After everything you've been through, have you been able to forgive your shooter?
You know, the fact that my security detail did such an incredible job, both David Bailey and Crystal Griner of Capitol Police, you know, and the other police officers who came on the scene and ultimately took the shooter down, you know, they did their jobs, and at least, you know, none of the people that he shot were killed. I mean, it was a miracle that if you look at what happened, and he came to take, I mean, there was over a dozen members of Congress in the dugout, and if the Capitol Police weren't there, he would have just been able to come right around and take them all out. It would have been a horrible tragedy. It was already bad enough, but, you know, I think it worked out where, you know, God took care of those of us that were shot. So I just consider every day a blessing.
So now that you're back at work, what are you most excited to accomplish in the coming legislative year?
I really think tax reform is the most important thing we're going to do this year. We did pass a repeal and replace of Obamacare out of the House. It would have been a bill that would have lowered rates for families. It's still, to this day, I'd say would be a bill that would fix the healthcare system and make it better for families. It didn't pass the Senate by one vote. I watched from the hospital with disappointment that they couldn't get it done. But at the same time, if we are able to reform our tax code for the first time since 1986, since Ronald Reagan was president, that's how long it's been. And it's hard to do, but, you know, the hardest things are probably the most important things and the things that will transform this country in a good way. And so I really think if we get this done by the end of this year, you will see this economy take off like nothing we've seen in decades, where jobs are created, jobs come back overseas, people finally see their wages going up again. This is something that we'll be talking about for generations if we do this right. And the bill we produced today is a great start to actually get our economy moving again, and hopefully it gets to President Trump's desk.
Now, if it doesn't get to President Trump's desk, what happens 2018?
I think we've got to just keep working until we get it done. You know, my attitude during healthcare was failure is not an option, and we had a lot of times where we could have given up because it looked like there was no way we could pass that bill. And every change you made on one side would affect votes on the other side. And so it was a very delicate balance to put that coalition together, but we did it. And what it proves is you just keep working at it. There's always a chance, as anybody across the country, no matter what they're doing that's important, there's going to be steps along the way where you could have said, you know what, this is too hard. But Americans are fighters. I'm a fighter. Our conference is willing to fight for this and get it done. The Senate needs to have that same attitude. And President Trump's all in. I mean, he wants to get this done for the American people. This is something that he knows is going to actually help us rebuild the middle class that evaporated over the last 10 years. So let's just keep working to get it done.
Now, on a much lighter note and final question, you've got a very, your scooter is fantastic, a lot of swag. Eye of the Tiger playing. Why Eye of the Tiger?
You know, I graduated from LSU. I actually lived in Tiger Stadium my second year. It used to be dormitories. I bleed purple and gold. And so my wife actually painted my scooter purple and gold and got Eye of the Tiger to play off of it. And so it's really fun to be able to share some of that, some of that camaraderie. And, you know, of course, I've got a lot of rivals, believe it or not. Not everybody supports LSU here in the House. And so for my colleagues from other states, especially SEC states, we have a little fun with it too. But look, LSU is going to beat Alabama this Saturday. You know, we're going to slay the dragon, #1 in the nation. They're going down. You heard it here first.
There we go.